Hey everyone, I am the host today. My name is Ron Baker, and I get to host our Vital Moments today because this was a unique weekend for us. It was Thanksgiving weekend. David wrote the talk, recorded it for Clinton, preached it in Exeter, and then I took it and the basis of it, and I modified it for Exeter and made it my own, which was really great.
Modified it for Poplar Hill.
For Poplar Hill.
Yeah,
What'd
you
I
said
say?
Exeter. You said Exeter.
Oh, did I? I meant Poplar
Does
Hill.
your heart want to be in Exeter?
My heart is always in Exeter.
Yeah, I was just good
And
answer. Good answer.
my heart is always in Clinton.
I love it.
Listen, this is Vital Moments. This is our wrap up from Sunday, October 9th. It was Thanksgiving weekend. We talked about peace. We're in this series called How to Win at Life. And we've been unpacking the fruit of the Spirit from Galatians chapter 5, verses 22 and 23. We started with love, joy, second week, joy, third week, peace. And David, you wrote a talk for this and you recorded it and delivered it in Exeter, where my heart is. Why don't you talk to us a little bit about understanding peace from sort of an ancient context, from a negative perspective, then talk about it from a positive perspective.
Yeah, it was interesting in the studies figuring out like the ancient context of peace. From the Greeks look at it, was this negative understanding. It was like the absence of war, anxiety. And it was really interesting to see it as like this word peace that I'm so used to in our world now. It's like you see the hands like doing the peace sign or the emojis that people send. It's just like it's this like hopefully everything's well, right? It's like looking for something inside that's peaceful. And the ancient context for the Greeks was the absence of war. So they saw it as something happened, and it like was the absence of something big in history that carried like a negative connotation or a negative feeling towards it, because it was something that was really big and really devastating. And then that was the Greeks' look on it. But then for us, go ahead.
But I think that was an interesting point you made. I get to cut you off now because you cut me off on your hosting. I think it was important to identify the fact that there is a certain level of peace that does come when something is removed from our lives, like something frustrating, something painful. I kind of associate it to like a sliver in our finger, like it's infected, it gets red. And then when you pick that sliver out, there's a sense of relief.
Yeah.
There's a sense of peace, but peace is obviously, as you were teaching on this, it's way deeper than the removal of something negative.
Yeah. And then like the Hebrew word for peace is shalom, which many of us, I actually looked this up back like when I was studying. I'm like, isn't there a commercial that it was like posted like a long, long time ago? And there's this commercial from way back. It was this fishing company. And it's just guys yelling shalom to each other on the phone. It's like a ripoff from a movie of everyone saying what's up and stuff like that. It was hilarious. And
that's funny.
But this word shalom for the Hebrew language is something drastically different than a negative connotation. It's all about well-being and bringing a sense of a presence, a blessing. So it was such a different look at peace, because when the people in the ancient context that would speak shalom over each other, it was hopefully there's good health, peaceful mind, oneness, quietness, rest, blessing in your life. It wasn't it was mainly all positive. And that's what I loved about it, because for us as people in our 21st century, we think of peace and we do hear this definition of like harmony or unity. And this is what this word shalom was actually trying to do. But it was beautiful to see the Old Testament covenant that God actually gave to his people of Israel in the Old Testament, that it was a covenant of shalom, a covenant of well-being, a covenant of like peace inside of your being, and only through a relationship with him. It wasn't anything else in this world that he was saying that is going to give you this peace. It's actually my covenant, my relationship with you
Yeah.
is the peace that you desire in your life. Because I did say at the very beginning of the message, and I hope you said it as well, but we are all fighting for inner peace. Ever
Yeah.
since Genesis
Yeah.
chapter 3, when Adam and Eve disobeyed God and went against his design and intentions for our world, Genesis chapter 3, human beings have literally been fighting for inner peace. And I called it a
Hmm.
war.
Yeah.
Um, we're actually at war for inner peace.
Hmm.
And God is the only one. So his covenant, and then Isaiah chapter 9 talks about um,
Yeah. Yeah.
Jesus being that fulfillment of peace, where he's the Prince of Peace,
Mm.
and his government will actually have peace and it'll have no end to it. So I just thought that ancient context and learning the understanding of peace was such an essential part, and understanding that we're at war inside of our beings. Like, we desire to go back to the original design, and we're at war, and there's this tension. And some of us know the tension, that we lack peace in our lives, and some of us are just ignoring it. And I
Hmm.
thought that was interesting to bring to people's attention.
Yeah. Because peace, uh, one of the things you and I talked about before we pressed the record button was that peace that we're looking for is not the absence of something, it's the presence of someone.
Hmm.
Right. It goes back to that
Yeah.
Isaiah 9, the Prince of Peace. And I think, I associated, our lives, that inner turmoil is like
Hmm.
the spinning wheel on the guinea pig cage, like the guinea pig or whatever gets on the spinning wheel and spins, spins, spins. And this inner turmoil,
Hmm.
we're trying to find peace. So we were reaching out to different things, trying different things, but
Yeah.
ultimately it doesn't give us the peace that we're looking for. And that quietness of the soul almost, right? And
Hmm.
I think it's important to understand that the peace that we're talking about is offered to us through the person of Jesus Christ, and this peace protects our hearts and our minds.
Yeah. And you're bang on with that. And I think that's where, as studying this and really praying over it, that people would acknowledge, not just understand, but they would acknowledge that um the things of this world will not bring them the peace. Because like, we gotta understand also that we're not the authors of peace. We often think that we're
Right.
in the driver's seat for everything, right? And we get to choose, we get to search, we get to choose, like, the things that we want in this world for ourselves. And we hope and pray that these things, and many of us just hope, don't pray, that we actually think these things of this world are going to bring us this peace that our soul desires so much. Because what's interesting is, as we search the world, those things aren't eternal. Your soul and your spiritual self is eternal,
Mm-hmm.
where God is actually desiring you to find that peace within his son Jesus, like you said. And I think that's why I thought it was so beautiful for us to understand that we did communion
Mm.
and it paired up with peace. Because as I was looking at some studies through last week, and what we've noticed through church planning, is that people are desiring healing in their lives.
Right.
Um, and as we search the world, we notice that the world doesn't actually bring us this healing. It doesn't actually bring us this deep victory over our souls. Only the cross does. The story of Jesus is and history changer, and eternal changer of the cross, of his death, burial, and resurrection, where he actually wins this inner war for peace inside of us. And I thought that was interesting for us to remind people, and also say, hey, this is the foundational truth that we believe, that this is the only peace that actually will fulfill your soul.
Mm-hmm. I was just looking at there because we talked about Ephesians 2:14. For he
Hmm.
himself
Yeah.
is our peace.
Yeah.
And, and I think that we recognize that even back to, I believe, Romans, where we talked about,
Hmm.
I think it was Romans where we talked about, you set your minds on the things of the flesh, which that's what Galatians 5 is talking about, is the tension of the
Hmm.
flesh and the spirit. The flesh as a disordered self defined by
Hmm.
sin, um, which then therefore brings death. But when we set our minds on the spirit is life and
Life and
peace.
peace.
And
Because that's the
that,
question that we're asking, right? In
yeah,
this whole thing, like, how do you win at life,
right.
right? And what we're learning very quickly through this series is
Mm,
that when you seek the things of the flesh, there is death, there is chaos, there's destruction, there's brokenness, and that disordered desires that we tend to, many of us follow so much, and is actually dictating the way we live our lives. We're noticing and feeling, wow, it actually is hurting me more than it is bringing me life. So how do I
Hmm.
win at life? And what people are noticing, and well, I pastor in Exeter, so I talk with a lot of people in the Exeter community. They're like, "Wow, like our connect group chatting about the actual life in the spirit is really something beautiful." Like their minds and their hearts have had this posture switch on
Hmm.
how they're interacting with family that are maybe not Christ followers, their neighbors that aren't Christ followers. And that's what I love about this series is it's just a simple question. How do you win at life? Because we're all asking it. Maybe not
Hmm.
verbalizing it, but we're asking it. We're living in a way of like, I want to win at life. I don't want to fail. I don't want to be someone that's not successful in a way, right? So,
Yeah, yeah, because I think what we're talking about is winning at life is understanding that being part of the kingdom of heaven
mhm,
is a different definition of winning at life than the way the world
yeah.
defines it. And it's
Mhm.
interesting. We talked about James 3:18, but I almost added in 17.
Oh,
But
yeah.
since you wrote it and I didn't, but it says, but the wisdom from above is first
Mhm.
pure, then peaceable,
Yeah.
right? Gentle, gentle, open to reason, full of mercy and good
Hmm.
fruits, impartial and sincere. And a harvest of righteousness is sown in peace by those who make peace.
Hmm.
Because the reality of the peace that has been given to us through the person of Jesus Christ to give us that peace. And not to, I said this in our context. I said, some people try Jesus and and they say he didn't work because they
Yeah.
think that he's going to remove the turmoil and the struggle in our
Hmm.
lives. But actually, he becomes the peace in the midst of it. But I really do believe also that, you know, the mission of peace is to be peacemakers. Jesus talks about this in
Yeah.
Matthew 5, blessed are the peacemakers. So I think that that was an important distinction too.
Hmm.
It's like Christians are notorious of being
Hmm.
selfish, right? We are notorious
Yeah.
of being, hey, this is for me. I'm an individual. Jesus did this for me. But
Hmm.
actually, you want to know the will of God for your life is to go and be a peacemaker,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. David
Just
Campbell
sow
said,
this. Yeah.
like, just to piggyback that, and David Campbell in his book Landmark says, "Peace is the healing and wholeness God brings to us through
Hmm.
the gospel of shalom, the gospel of peace, of good news. It gives blessing to every part of our lives, spiritually, emotionally, and materially." Which those three things are really interesting because our world, it actually is like saying, "Hey, like seek the world so it brings healing to these areas, like spiritually, emotionally,
Hmm.
and healthy." But the world cannot offer healing to those parts. And he goes on to say, it enables us to be whole and healthy people who can give away our health to others.
Mm.
We become givers of peace to those around us, bringing healing to a broken world.
Yeah.
And it's not for us to just hold tight and sit in our little bunkers in our basement and be like, hopefully the world's okay because I've got the peace.
Right.
No, it is being like, no, if this, we recognize as Christ followers, we're called to go out
Yeah.
and reveal the reconciliation and the peace that God has given us through his
Yeah.
son
And
Jesus.
I think for us as a church, as Vital Point Church, the reason why we're expanding into other towns and
Hmm.
areas is because we believe that God has given us a great mission to go and be dispensers of this peace and
Yeah.
messengers of reconciliation, ambassadors. And so
Yeah.
for me, when I think about, what I want to see happen at Vital Point Church is not, let's all get together and have a good time and love each other and
Yeah.
sing some choruses and oh, wasn't this great? And then we go Monday morning. Listen,
Mhm.
none of this will sink deep into our lives if it
Mhm.
doesn't become practical on Monday morning
Yeah.
or Tuesday morning or Wednesday morning, Thursday morning,
Mhm.
and that we then begin to live it out in a way that begins to grow inside of us. People often say to me, "We just want deeper teaching," right? I appreciate what they're saying, but what they fail to recognize is that the deeper comes when you're actually practically living it out
Mhm.
and that sinks deep into your life and it becomes part of who you are. And I think
Mhm.
about, professional soccer players. I watched that show I told you about, Tottenham Hotspurs, and they do the same routines in practice every single day. Why?
Yeah.
So that these practical things become natural to them. And I think for us
Mhm.
as followers of Jesus and those who will become followers of Jesus, listening to this, is there's this understanding of what happens in our lives when we put it in practice and put it in
Yeah.
practice and live it out. in the formation of that with the Spirit, obviously. It's not in our own efforts.
It's not you in you through you.
Yeah, that's right. It's you through the Spirit in
Yeah.
the formation of it. So
Mhm.
I don't know how much time we are in now. You'll have to
We're
give
good.
me. We're good. Okay. It was a great talk. Thank you so much for writing the framework of it. I was able to adapt it for Poplar Hill. I know that
Mhm.
there is some decent feedback on this. Exciting times for us as a
Yeah.
church. And if you are not connected at all at Vitalpoint Church and you're wanting to make it feel more like home, you need to reach out to us through the website. We'd be happy to find a way for you to connect, because it starts feeling
Yeah.
like home when you start connecting,
Mhm.
which is basically moving from rows to circles, which it's not original to me. It's someone else said that. Might have been Andy Stanley. Anyway, good stuff. Thanks, Dave, for a great time.
No
And
problem.
thank you for allowing me to host. And thanks, everybody, for listening. We hope that you become, may you become people of peace. Peace,
Peace.
peace out.
Peace out. See ya.
See ya.